Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about time. I know, it's the one thing that none of us has enough of, but it's also the one thing that if you don't figure it out, I can pretty much guarantee you're not going to have a successful content creation business. So let's jump right into this. When it comes to time management and creatives, okay, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. There's this sort of myth that if you are really talented and really creative and you're a really great, creative artist, that it just magically happens and that you don't really need to be disciplined with your schedule. I don't know who started this. It's not true. There is no such thing. I mean, maybe there is. Maybe there's that random YouTuber that like eats a sandwich for 30 minutes and on camera and doesn't edit the video and makes $1 million. For most of us, and I speak for myself, all of my friends who are professional content creators, y'all, this is work. Editing Jen, zoom in on your face when you say this. This is work. It is hours and hours and hours of work. It's work that I love. It's work that I'm excited about. But you cannot just say in the midst of maybe another full-time job, raising a family, doing all of these things, hey, I think I want to be a content creator without really looking at time. Also, if you're an established content creator, you always have to be reevaluating how you're spending your time, right? Because we always have to be learning and evolving and figuring out how we can scale our business. Because if your business isn't growing, it's actually dying. I hate saying that, but if you're not growing month over month, and I'm not saying every single month, but that chart better look like this, or your channel is dying a slow death. So we have to also devote some time to constantly reevaluating our systems, because what you were doing 8 years ago is probably not working now. So although your time may shift if you're a smaller channel to then when you're, a monetized and a bigger channel, it's always going to take a lot of time. So when I look at my content creation business, for those of you that are new, I've been a full-time content creator for the last 5 years. I've been creating content for really going back to 2012, if we start with my blog, but on YouTube since 2017. I'm very proud of the business that I've built. We're going to do well over 6 figures this year, and it's been a really exciting time. But the list of things that I have to keep track of and that I'm responsible for continues to grow. And although I have been able to make some hires over the years, I have a fabulous team. Hey, Annalise, I love you. It's still a full-time plus job. And so setting good boundaries around my time is enormously important. To get ready for this video, I did one of my favorite things, which is to do research, really nerdy research about famous writers and their work schedules. Because I'm like, let's look at the schedules of people who have really made it big. Now, granted, these people were not content creators, but this is still a fairly new business, so we don't have a lot of like idols to look at in this business. In studying a lot of these famous writers and creatives, they had one thing in common, and that was they were incredibly disciplined about their time. Now, their schedules looked very different from writer to writer, everything from Maya Angelou, who always maintained a hotel room wherever they lived and would have sherry and her Bible, and she would get there at 6:30 every morning and she would write till 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Every single day. Stephen King would write every single day. There was always like a discipline to what they were doing. Stephen King actually, interestingly, said he was either working or he was not working at all. He didn't have like days off, which doesn't work for me, but that was what he would do. So he would take like weeks off and not work at all. But when he was in work mode, he said it didn't matter if it was his birthday or Christmas or whatever, he still devoted those same amount of hours to writing. I'm not sure how his wife felt about that, but whatever. Writers and great creatives all have this very disciplined approach to the work. And I think that the more creative you are, the more disciplined you have to be in your systems so that, right, you create a playpen, if you will, or a boundary. Think of it kind of maybe like a, what am I trying to say? A barnyard, right? Where within the fence, you've got all the frolicking and fun and creativity and testing and trying new things, but you have this boundary of time that keeps the art or the creativity or the filming or the writing from just taking over everything, and it gives you the discipline to make sure that you get the work done. So we kind of have to start from a place of understanding that quality content creation takes a great deal of time. And if you don't have the time to devote to it, you will not be successful. I don't care how talented you are. I don't care what a great communicator you are, what a good writer you are. If there's no time, it ain't going to happen. So if you want to have a successful content creation business, you have to find the time to work. Now, for me, practically, I make sure every single week I schedule two things: my work time and my non-working time. And I say that because I think I can say all this stuff about discipline and work hard and all that thing, and it can start to feel a little bit like hustle culture, right? Which is that kind of, oh, what was that girl's name that none of us like anymore? The, girl, go wash your face mentality that just, work harder, work harder, work harder, and you're going to get the work done and then you'll be successful. But I take a very different approach, and there is that point of diminishing returns where working harder just means that every hour that you're working is less effective. So when I sit down, this is very practically how I personally do my schedule. I sit down every Sunday afternoon and I do two things. I listen to the Chani app, which is Chani Nichols' app, where she will tell you your horoscope for the week. Don't judge. I love it. I also love her voice. It's very soothing. Not sponsored. And then I schedule out my week. So I look at what appointments do I have? How can I chunk my time? So I personally work best. Not that I'm saying I get this right every week. This week is a great example of me not getting it right. But I work best if I schedule a whole day to do one aspect of my business. So the different things that I personally have going on are my Patreon, my Facebook, my Instagram. I do other social media posting on Threads. I do short form content. I create long form content. I have to take care of my e-course. Annalise and I work very hard on our newsletter. Annalise is my very part-time assistant. There are brand sponsorships to worry about. I have to be talking to brands and going over contracts. I have to do my affiliate marketing, making sure that all of that is taken care of. I have to make sure I'm getting paid. I have to do my paperwork. I have to scan my receipts. I have to do my taxes. And the list goes on and on and on and on. So I like to schedule a creative day. So that would be a day where I'm, getting in hair and makeup and I'm probably filming. I also have to schedule days that are just for research, like the research I did for this video. I have to schedule days to learn things. Because like I said at the outset, if you're still doing things the same way you were doing them 8 years ago, you're probably not growing as a content creator. People change, people's tastes change, formatting changes. You've got to update your thumbnails. You've got to find out, what are people watching now? You need to have time to really listen to your audience, to really dig deep into your analytics and figure out what your channel is telling you. All of those things take time. I also like to plan days that are just for my own personal development. Back when I was a pastor, we used to have reading days where we would do nothing but, guess what? Read. That's why they were called reading days. But those are days where I might dig into something like The Artist's Way, which is a fabulous resource if you haven't read it. I might read, something that is more of a meditation. I might read something for fun, but just to kind of pause and let my brain rest. One thing that I learned when I was a marathoner, and marathoners always love to just work that into the conversation, so that's what I just did, is I was taught by many coaches over the years that you can't just run every single day. You can't just go out and run 15 miles every day and expect to improve. What will happen is your muscles will start to break down and you won't see any improvement at all, and you'll actually end up being slower and injured. Instead, you want to have a variety of different kinds of workouts. You want to have hard days, easy days. Maybe you're doing sprints one day, and then you have to have days that are total rest. So I plan out my work time, but I also plan out my rest time and I plan out my play time. Now, I think of those as two different things. My rest time is really for me to do whatever I want. That is a day without an agenda. Maybe only half a day is all I can fit in, but that's a day where I am staying in my pajamas. I am, watching Real Housewives. I am not cooking. We're getting takeout. That is a true rest day, and I try to do one of those at least half a day of every week, if not a whole day, which is much, much better. And then I have time for play. And this is when I'm going to spend time with friends and family. This is time, even when I'm on a work trip, that I'm not going to film because everything cannot be for content. My wonderful friend Adam, who has a thriving content creation business, he's also a published author. He's the one who taught me to, when I'm doing a trip that I'm vlogging, to make sure that I'm always taking a day off that's not for content. Because in this business, we could very easily have every part of our life become fodder for content. And that's just not good for our brains. It's not good for our mental health. We need spaces of our lives that we keep to ourselves and that are just for us and that we're not filming. And I've actually done this, and it always cracks me up because someone will do like an Instagram reel and be like, as I'm taking today off and I'm looking out at the forest, I'm reflecting on, I'm like, bitch, you are not taking the day off. You are making an Instagram reel. If you were actually taking a day off, you wouldn't be able to make an Instagram reel about it. So really making sure that we're scheduling those times. The other thing that I have to be very disciplined about in terms of my time is making plenty of time for my family and friends. Relationships are incredibly important. You are in a very strange field. I was trying to explain it to my husband. I was like, what if every time you took off in an airplane, you had to go out into the cockpit and ask the passengers if they liked you? And if they liked you, you would get paid. And if they didn't like you, you would not get paid. So you better make sure that you're charming and engaging, that you communicate well, that you look good, that your hair looks good, all of the things. Better make sure your clothes are ironed, because whether or not those passengers like you is going to determine your paycheck. Now, you can say all day long, don't make content for that. That's no way to live. That will mess with your head. This is a business. I employ people. There are people relying on me. There isn't a certain amount of income that needs to come in. And this is my job, but my job is actually based on the algorithm and the audience, and if people are still interested in what I have to say. And it can really get inside your head. If you don't have a good system of friends and family that are loving you unconditionally without having any expectation of you as a creator or a communicator or a TikToker or a YouTuber or anything, you're in deep trouble. This job can be incredibly isolating, especially because most of us work from home. We work by ourselves. We don't have a team. You need good people around you to support you, to give you encouragement, to bounce things off of, people that you can be giving to them in their lives so that you don't become completely narcissistic about the whole thing, because that can actually happen with content creators. We look at ourselves all day, every day. If you don't have a good system of friends and family where you're also pouring into other people, I think you're going to end up at best burnout, and at worst, a really person that people don't want to be around anymore. So you've got to make sure you're also making time for that. And all of these things play in to you being the best creator you can be, which then allows you to build and scale your business. So as your takeaway from today's video and as your action step, right? I want you to evaluate your time. How are you spending it? If you're feeling constantly stressed for time, what do you need to take away so that you can add in? Where could you be more disciplined? Where could you shore up where there is time wasting going on? Because we all are guilty of that, especially it's very easy to spend way too much time doom scrolling, which isn't good for any of us. And how can you better structure your day to better support your goals in your content creation business so that you can be as creative, professional, and profitable as you possibly can be? Thank you so much for being here today. Happy creating. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye.